There's always a trio of people, things, or just media in general that becomes iconic. The Dark Knight trilogy, the legendary Sanin, and even the anime Big Three. So, for the next 3 weeks until Halloween, I'll be covering the horror Big Three: Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and of course, Halloween. I will be covering each by reviewing the original film and then a series retrospective after. Friday the 13th, released in 1980, and like the other two film series, started a mega franchise with arguably the three most recognizable horror icons in movie history: Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, and Michael Myers. The difference is, Jason was not the original killer in the first film. Actually, before I get to that point, let's go over the film from the beginning. It starts off in a cabin with a whole bunch of counselors just kinda sitting around and having fun, or whatever they were doing. So immediately we know that the movie's taking place out in the woods rather than a suburban setting, in the iconic Camp Crystal Lake. If you're familiar with slashers, then this movie is the standard definition of it. Teenagers, adults, or counselors show up to a place, some debauchery occurs, and people get picked off one by one. That's a simple enough premise. However, this movie has a great soundtrack. Even though it sounds a lot like Psycho, it's definitely unique because of the giving a weird illusion to maybe we're listening to the inside of the killer's mind. Another thing this movie kind of solidified is the B-movie, trashy kind of idea of a slasher with sex, drugs, and a lot of death. Speaking of death, the kills are top-notch, mainly because of the man behind the kills, Tom Savini. The makeup and effects really sell how each person dies. Wow, sounds like I got a couple screws loose. Well, to be honest, we all do, so don't judge me. Anyway, a highlight of the film is definitely Kevin Bacon's death. Now let's talk about the finale. Even though this movie is 36 years old, I will say, spoiler alert, just in case you haven't seen or heard about the ending. Now that I got that out of the way, let's get into it. In slashers, the final girl is always a female lead and they're always the last to survive. So final girl Alice runs into Pamela Voorhees, the mother of Jason Voorhees. Which, surprise, Jason isn't the killer, but instead it's his mother. Which is a nice twist for a movie you didn't expect or think to have any substance in it. It kind of makes it a reverse cycle, especially when she starts talking in her dead son's voice.
Kill her, Mommy.
Gives the character a little bit more depth than the usual slasher. However, we don't see much of her, which leads into my couple negatives of the film. In every slasher movie, for some reason, the final girl or person always can survive the villain. No matter if even if the villain was one-shotting everybody, for some reason in this ending, Pamela is just slapping Alice around and like throwing her around rather than just killing her right away like she was doing the whole time. The ending of this movie is also kind of a negative, but also a boost to it, because it has that jump scare ending with Jason coming out of the water and grabbing Alice and bringing her under. That's a great shock ending that even if you haven't seen the movie or heard of it, you've probably heard of that scene alone. But then it gets undone the next scene by her waking up in the hospital, getting rid of that great ending shot by also setting it up for another sequel. All in all, Friday the 13th is a good movie with some flaws and some great soundtracks and kills. It's definitely not the best of the big three, or from the original film standpoint, but I highly recommend it, and it also gives like a kind of build up to see Jason Voorhees in the following movies, because he's the iconic character. Especially for Halloween season, I definitely recommend you watching this, at least once. This was Varied Geek, thank you for watching. Leave a like and comment down below, and subscribe if you're new here. I will try to upload the retrospective of Friday the 13th on Wednesday afternoon, so look out for that. And then the following week I'll be covering Nightmare on Elm Street. Follow me on social media, it'll be all down below in the description, and everyone have a nice day. Bye guys.